A podcaster travels to Canada for an interview and ends up becoming the victim of a deranged man's horrifying obsession with turning humans into walruses. Wallace Brighton and his friend Teddy Kraft run a popular podcast called The Nazi Party. Their show has a simple but cruel concept. Wallace finds videos of people humiliating themselves online, and the duo mocks them mercilessly for entertainment. Their newest target is someone the internet calls the Kill Bill Kid, a guy who accidentally cuts off his own leg while playing with a katana sword. Wallace decides to fly to Canada to interview this person in Manitoba. But Wallace wasn't always this cynical. Flashbacks reveal he starts out as a struggling stand-up comedian who isn't very successful. His podcast gradually makes him famous, but the cost is high. He becomes meaner and more vicious with each episode. His girlfriend Ally notices the change and hates what Wallace is becoming. She accuses him of selling out his values for fame. They fight constantly about it. When Wallace arrives in Manitoba, he discovers terrible news: the Kill Bill Kid kills himself by accident. Wallace attends the funeral, frustrated that he wastes an expensive trip to Canada for nothing. He refuses to leave empty-handed though. He decides to stay one more day to find another weird person to mock on his podcast. While using a bathroom at a local bar, Wallace spots an interesting flyer on the wall. Someone named Howard Howe offers free room and board at his home, plus promises to share fascinating life stories. Wallace's podcaster instincts kick in. This sounds like perfect material. He drives out to the address. Howard Howe lives in an impressive, stately mansion. He's an elderly man who uses a wheelchair. Howard welcomes Wallace warmly and offers him tea. He begins sharing incredible stories from his years working at sea. Howard tells tale after tale, each one more captivating than the last. But the story Howard really wants to share is about a walrus. He explains how his ship once crashes while the crew searches for a legendary great white shark. Howard ends up stranded alone on a remote island. He nearly drowns, but a walrus saves his life. Howard names this walrus Mr. Tusk and credits the animal with his survival. As Howard passionately describes Mr. Tusk, Wallace suddenly feels dizzy. The room spins. He passes out cold. The tea contains drugs. Wallace wakes up the next morning in a nightmare. He's strapped into a wheelchair and can't move. Something feels wrong with his body. He looks down and screams. His left leg is completely gone, amputated at the thigh. Howard wheels himself into the room and calmly explains what happens. He claims he sees a brown recluse spider crawl out of Wallace's pant leg during the night. A local doctor performs emergency surgery to save Wallace's life by removing the infected leg. Wallace doesn't believe a word of this obvious lie. His terror grows during dinner that evening. Howard makes a casual joke about the spider that bit Wallace. Then Howard suddenly stands up from his wheelchair. He can walk perfectly fine. The wheelchair is just an act. Howard reveals his true plan. He's obsessed with walruses, specifically with Mr. Tusk. He intends to surgically transform Wallace into a perfect walrus costume made from human parts. Wallace frantically tries to call Ally and Teddy for help, but neither answers their phones. The truth is, Teddy and Ally are having an affair behind Wallace's back, which is why they ignore his calls. Before Wallace can try again, Howard strikes him violently in the back of the head with an usik, a walrus penis bone. Howard tells Wallace his human life ends now. Back home, Ally and Teddy finally realize something is seriously wrong when they can't reach Wallace. They fly to Canada immediately to search for him. They follow lead after lead, but nothing works. Every trail goes cold. Meanwhile, Howard continues his horrific work on Wallace. Between surgical sessions, Howard shares his backstory. He grows up as a Duplessis orphan in Quebec. Throughout his childhood, he endures constant physical abuse, psychological torture, and sexual assault. These experiences destroy Howard's sanity completely and fill him with hatred for all humanity. His obsession with walruses becomes his only escape from the trauma. Howard finishes his grotesque masterpiece. He surgically alters Wallace's body and sews him into a costume made entirely of human skin fashioned to look like a walrus. The tusks are Wallace's own leg bones, his tibias, positioned to protrude from the suit. Wallace no longer looks human. He becomes Howard's vision of Mr. Tusk reborn, a monstrous fusion of man and walrus. Ally and Teddy desperately continue their search. A local detective named Frank Garman connects them with Guy Lapointe, a former Quebec police officer who's now an alcoholic. Guy has been hunting Howard Howe for years. He explains that police call Howard the first wife. Because of his disturbing pattern, he kidnaps and murders people repeatedly. Guy once tracks Howard down years earlier, but Howard escapes by changing his name and location. Guy believes Wallace might still be alive, but warns them Wallace won't be the person they remember. Eventually, Guy helps them find Howard's address by tracking down two convenience store clerks who remember Wallace annoying them earlier. By the time they locate the mansion, Wallace's transformation is complete, not just physically, but mentally. Howard breaks Wallace's mind through conditioning and torture. Wallace now thinks and behaves like an actual walrus. He's lost his humanity entirely. Howard reveals his darkest secret to Wallace. The real reason for his obsession has nothing to do with gratitude. 6 months after the shipwreck, starving and desperate, Howard kills and eats Mr. Tusk to survive. The guilt over killing his savior drives Howard even further into madness. For years, he kidnaps people and transforms them into versions of Mr. Tusk. Each transformation represents Howard's twisted attempt to recreate that final day on the island and give Mr. Tusk another chance at survival, a chance where the walrus wins. Howard puts on his own homemade walrus costume. He challenges Wallace to a fight, walrus against walrus. The battle is brutal and animalistic. Wallace, now fully believing he is a walrus, fights with savage instinct. The fight ends when Wallace kills Howard by goring him with the bone tusks. Ally, Teddy, and Guy Lapointe finally break into the mansion. They discover an underground enclave where the fight takes place. When they see Wallace, they can barely process what they're looking at. The creature that was once Wallace bellows at them like an animal. Guy raises his shotgun, uncertain whether to shoot or not. Passes. Wallace still lives, permanently sewn into the walrus suit. Authorities place him in a wildlife sanctuary because he can't function as a human anymore. The transformation is irreversible, both physically and psychologically. Ally and Teddy visit him at the sanctuary. They're both traumatized by what happens to their friend. They approach Wallace's enclosure and feed him a mackerel like feeding any other animal. Ally remembers a conversation she has with Wallace the day before he leaves for Canada. They discuss how crying is what separates humans from animals, the ability to shed tears of emotion. Ally looks at the creature Wallace becomes and tells him she still loves him. She starts crying and walks away, unable to bear looking at him anymore. As she leaves, something impossible happens. Tears roll down Wallace's face, streaming over the tusks. He lets out a mournful bellow. Somewhere inside the walrus monster, a tiny piece of Wallace's humanity still exists, just enough to feel pain, loss, and sorrow, but not enough to be saved.